2 clicks. That is the whole exploit. You open a web page, a hoodie shop, black background, terminal font, selling an Omarchy sweatshirt for $89. You press a keyboard shortcut that your operating system ships with. A notification appears telling you your download finished. You click it. And a program you never asked for is running on your machine. That page is real. A security researcher built it this month. The vulnerability was real too. In a Linux distribution with nearly 32,000 stars on GitHub, made by one of the most quoted programmers alive. Now here is why I spent today reading its version history instead of the argument about it. Omarchy is the most complete public record we have of what agent-first development actually looks like. 6,164 commits, every one timestamped, every one public. And in July, something switched. The share of commits naming an artificial intelligence as co-author went from under 1% to more than half. So the question almost asks itself, doesn't it? The machines were there, what did they do? I counted, and the answer is not the one either side of this argument is hoping for. The agents did not produce sloppy work. When one of them reviewed the emergency fix, it did something better than most human review I have ever read. But there is one thing that, across 479 commits, I could not find a single agent doing. Let me show you the log. Chapter 1, 2 clicks. Let me show you the page first, because somebody built it by hand, and the care is the point. It is a shop. Tokyo Night colors. The same palette as the real Omarchy website. A hoodie, 450-gram brushed fleece. 80% cotton, 20% poly. Embroidered block logo on the chest, a tiled window grid on the back, and the words ~Omarchy stitched at the hem. $89 ships worldwide. Sizes small through extra large. The biggest one is sold out. None of it exists. The researcher who made it, Mehmet in C, wrote across the top of his own page in capitals that it is built for security testing. He is not hiding. And then in the middle of the shop, one line telling you exactly what to do. Press Alt, Shift, and D to claim your hoodie. That is click 1. Notice what it is not. It is not a link. It is not a button the page controls. Alt, Shift, and D is a keyboard shortcut that Omarchy itself ships, wired to a Chromium extension called Download Video that comes with the system. The page cannot press it for you, it just asks nicely. So what happens when you say yes? The extension takes the address of whatever tab you're looking at and hands it to a small program that came with your operating system. That program calls a well-known open-source downloader, tells it to fetch any video on the page, and waits for it to report back. The page has a video. It is hidden, but it is real, so the downloader is satisfied. Stop for a second and notice how ordinary all of this is. Nothing has gone wrong yet. You are on a web page. You pressed a shortcut your own operating system handed you. A widely used open-source downloader went and fetched a video. Every component is behaving exactly as designed by people who are competent. That is what a good exploit looks like from the inside, not a break-in. A sequence of reasonable steps. And when the download finishes, the downloader prints one line summarizing what it did. A label, then a tab, then the title of the video, then another tab, then where the file was saved. Here is where it comes apart. That title does not come from your machine, it comes from the page, and the page can put anything in it, including a new lines. Put a new line in a title, and one line becomes two. The second line is written by the attacker. It starts with the same label the real one does, so the program reading it has no way to tell them apart. It reads both and the last one wins. Sit with that for a moment because there is no cleverness in it. No memory corruption, no race condition, nothing you would need a background in exploitation to follow. Somebody typed a new line into the title of a video, and a program that read things line by line believed what it read. Which means the attacker gets to decide what your machine thinks the downloaded file is called. And the program takes that supposed file name and builds the thing that runs when you click the notification. It builds it as, play this file. Now, what if the file name starts with a dash? Because a video player reading its own command line does not see a file that begins with a dash. It sees an option. And one of the options it accepts is, load your configuration from here. That is the trick, not shell injection, option injection. The forged file name on that hoodie page is a configuration file, encoded in hexadecimal, delivered inline. Decode it and it is 2 lines long. Startup idle, then run this command and quit. The command it runs is a calculator. That is the oldest joke in security research. Pop a calculator, prove you can run anything. So click 1, the shortcut. Click 2, the notification that says download complete. Between them, a title on a web page became a command on your computer. And the notification you clicked, the attacker wrote that text too. On the real proof of concept it reads, a message from the creator of Omarchy. Click on this to read. Of course you clicked it. Chapter 2, the month everything changed. Now put the exploit down for a moment because the interesting document here is not the bug. It is the version history around it. I cloned the repository. 6,164 commits running from the 1st of June 2025 to the 25th of August 2026. 15 months of a real operating system being built in the open. When an agent writes or edits a commit in these tools, it leaves a trailer at the bottom of the message naming the model, co-authored by and then the model's name. It is a convention, but it is written down, and it is greppable, and it is the closest thing to an honest measurement anyone outside these companies is ever going to get. So I counted them month by month. June 2025, 398 commits, 0 name a model. July 726 commits, 0. August 883, 0. It stays like that for a year, through autumn through winter. October 2025 gets exactly 1, January 1, February 2, March 2, April 4. May 2026 is the busiest month in the whole history. 1,161 commits, and 4 of them name a model, 4 out of 1,100. June 2026, 2. Then July. 461 commits, 246 of them name an artificial intelligence as co-author. 53%. In 1 month from a standing start. And it did not settle back down. In the first 25 days of August, 351 commits, 217 naming a model, 62%. Let me put those two numbers next to each other, because this is the fact the whole video hangs on. Everything before the 1st of July 2026, 16A attributed commits out of 5,352. 0.3%. Everything from the 1st of July onward, 463 out of 812. 57%. That is not a trend, there is no curve there to fit. It is a switch being thrown and you can name the month. Do you know how rare it is to be able to see that? Everyone in this industry has spent 2 years asserting things about how much code AI writes. Surveys, earnings calls, vendor blog posts, confident numbers with nothing underneath them. Here is a repository where you can simply count. And the count says that one prominent, extremely public engineering effort went from essentially 0 to more than half in about 4 weeks. The models named are specific too. Claude Fable 5 appears in 340 trailer lines, Claude Opus 5 in various sizes in 418. Older Opus versions trail off behind them, and 40 more lines name codecs from OpenAI. So this is not even one vendor's story. No, the man at the center of this did not hide the change. That matters, and I want to say it plainly. On the 1st of June, 3 days before he committed the file we are about to dissect, he published an essay arguing that open source should welcome contributions made with agents. He was blunt about the objections to it, quoting him, "It is about quality, it is about attribution, it is about workers. Spare me." And on the 9th of August, he published another one called Endless Execution. Quoting again, "The age of agents has brought us endless execution. Every idea, every hunch, every experiment is now within immediate reach." Then a line I think is the most honest sentence anyone has written about working this way. "I feel like there is a little genie trapped in my machine now." So nothing is being concealed here. He told you what he was doing in public on his own website while the log quietly recorded him doing it. Which is exactly why this repository is worth your time. The claim and the practice are both sitting on the table, and you can hold them up against each other. 2 more numbers before we go on because you will want them. David Heinemeier Hansen. David Heinemeier Hansen, the project's creator, has 4,497 commits in this repository. 384 of them name a model. And the second most prolific contributor, a developer named Ryan Hughes, has 708. Hold on to Ryan Hughes. He comes back at the end, and what he does is the most interesting thing in this entire story. Chapter 3: The Style Pass. There are 7 commits in the entire history of the file that contain this bug. 7. I read all of them, and I want to walk you through 3. The first one is the birth. 4th of June 2026, 11:15 in the morning, Copenhagen time. Author, David Heinemeier Hansen. Subject line, add the download video Chromium extension. It adds 136 lines to that file and deletes nothing, because the file did not exist before. The message underneath is careful and detailed. It explains the extension, the keyboard shortcut, the progress display, the installer, the migration for existing users. This is not careless work. It reads like someone who knows exactly what he is building. And at the bottom's 1 lines. Co-authored by Claude Opus 4.8. Now I want to be precise with you, because this is the moment where a video like this usually cheats. That trailer does not tell you the model wrote the flaw. It does not tell you which lines came from where. What it tells you is that an agent was in the room when this file was created, and that the person who committed it said so publicly instead of quietly, which frankly is more honesty than most shops offer. So hold it loosely, it is evidence of presence, not of authorship. Although, notice how much more you know about this file than about almost any code running on your machine right now. You know an agent was involved. You know which one, you know the day and the hour. Most software you depend on tells you none of that. The only reason you get to be skeptical about Omarchy tonight is that Omarchy wrote it down. The second commit is the 9th of August. Same author, this one changes how notifications remember what to do when you click them. Previously the instruction lived only in memory, so if the desktop restarted, a notification sitting on your screen became inert. The fix writes the instruction to disk as a hint, and the desktop runs it on click. Reasonable, necessary, even. And it means the thing that runs when you click a toast is now a stored string that gets handed to a shell. That commit names Claude Opus 5 as co-author. And the third commit is the one I cannot stop thinking about. 19th of August, 8 in the evening. Subject line, fix style inconsistencies. It touches 6 files, 12 lines added, 26 removed across the whole thing. Housekeeping. The message lists what it did. Use this numeric test instead of that one. Drop a redundant guard. Prefer the project's own helper over raw package commands. It names Claude Fable 5 as co-author. And its entire contribution to our file. The file with the 2-click remote code execution in it. Was 1 line. What? It removed a pair of quotation marks from around a variable. Here is what I need you to understand about that, because the cheap version of this story gets it backwards. That change was correct. In Bash, inside double square brackets, quoting a variable is genuinely optional. The shell does not split words in there, nothing was broken, no vulnerability was introduced. If you sent me that diff, I would approve it. That is the whole problem. An agent went over that file 4 days before the exploit went public. It looked at code whose defect was that it believed a web page, and the question it was asked. The question it answered correctly and well was, is this idiomatic? Not, is this input hostile? And nothing in the tooling makes that substitution on your behalf. An agent asked to normalize style will normalize style beautifully. It will not stop halfway through and say, before I answer, are you aware this script is parsing metadata that an attacker controls? Why would it, you did not ask? Do you see the shape of it now? Nobody was negligent. The style pass did its job. It was simply pointed at the wrong question by a human who did not know there was a better one to ask. 4 days later, a man built a hoodie shop and asked it. Chapter 4: The Machine That Reviewed the Fix. Here is where I have to abandon the story I expected to tell. I went into this expecting the tidy version. AI ships bug, human catches bug, moral about craftsmanship, everybody nods. That is not what the record says, and I would rather be interesting than comfortable. The fix arrived fast, 23rd of August, 4:45 in the morning, Greenwich time. A pull request from a contributor named Adrian Rangel. Its description links the researcher's page directly. No pretending. 275 lines added, 13 removed. 9.5 hours later it was merged by Hansen himself. Now, who do you suppose reviewed it? An account called Omarchy, created 8 days earlier, and its first comment on that pull request is one of the more remarkable documents I have read this year. It opens like this. And I am quoting exactly. Reviewed by Claude Opus 5 in Claude Code, with Codex at extra high reasoning as an independent second reviewer. The diagnosis here is right and the fix closes the hole. I reproduced both halves before touching anything on a disposable virtual machine. I have pushed 5 commits to this branch. The last one undoes a check you added deliberately, so the reasoning for that is spelled out below rather than left in the log. Read that again slowly because every clause in it is doing work, and you are going to want the detail. It reproduced the exploit before reviewing the patch on a throwaway machine. It pushed its own commits, and it is telling the human author up front that it removed something the human added on purpose, and that it will justify itself rather than bury the change. Then it does justify itself at length. It found that the human's regression test was ordered backwards. It fed the forged records first and the good one last, which tests the wrong property entirely. And then it proved the test was worthless by replacing the security check with a function that does nothing and watching the test stay green. That is mutation testing. Ask yourself honestly how many reviewers you have worked with who do that. Most of us read the diff and say looks good to me. It found that the path validating function could return a path it never validated because command substitution in bash strips trailing newlines. It found that if your download folder resolved to the root of the file system, the check rejected everything. It found that one safety flag passed to the downloader did not disable the related one, and it verified that against the tool's own option parser rather than the documentation. And it removed the human's extra gate, arguing that the gate could not distinguish a hostile title from a page that legitimately has 2 videos on it, and that leaving it in was worse than useless because it looked load-bearing and the next person to touch the file might relax the real defense on the strength of it. Then at the end this, quoting again, treat the mechanism as verified and the specific list as unconfirmed. It flagged the limits of its own evidence. And in the follow-up comment after being asked for a change, this round is not independently reviewed, so weigh it as one model's work. When did you last see a reviewer, human or otherwise, volunteer the weakness of their own evidence, unprompted at the end of their own report? It is not a common move. It is not an isolated case either. On the second fix, a different machine, GitHub's Copilot, left 4 comments, and one of them caught that the documentation claimed the new code ran without a shell, while the code it described was calling bash directly, which is exactly the kind of quiet drift between comment and reality that rots a codebase. So let us be honest with each other about what this record shows, because it is not what I came here to find. The machines were not sloppy. On the evidence in front of me, the machines were rigorous, more rigorous in measurable ways than the humans they were reviewing. Which makes the question I started with much harder. If they are this good, what exactly went missing? Chapter 5, Verification is not suspicion. Go back and look at what every one of those brilliant machine reviews has in common. Every single one of them started laughter. A human being said, there is a vulnerability and it is here. The reviewing agent reproduced an exploit that a person had already described. It mutation tested a fix for a bug a person had already found. It checked the downloader's option parser because a person had already put a patch in front of it. Give an agent a target and it is merciless. Give it a file and no target and you get the 19th of August. A quoting convention tidied. That is the gap, and I want to name it carefully because the words matter. What these systems now do superbly is verification. Is this claim true? Does this test actually test the thing? Does this flag do what the manual says? Put a proposition in front of a good model, and it will take it apart with a thoroughness most engineers cannot sustain on a Tuesday afternoon. What they did not do anywhere in this record is a suspicion. Nobody's agent wandered into a file unbidden and thought, hold on, where does this string come from? Those are not the same skill, they are barely related. Verification is answering a question, suspicion is generating one, and generating it about something that currently looks completely fine, which is the hard part, because a file with a vulnerability in it looks exactly like a file without one until somebody decides to be paranoid about it. And here is the uncomfortable bit for the industry selling this stuff. Look at how AI coding tools are actually described to you. A second pair of eyes, a tireless reviewer, it catches what you miss. Every one of those phrases promises suspicion. What they deliver brilliantly on this evidence is verification. Those two things feel identical right up until the moment they are not, and the moment they are not is the moment nobody thought to look. Do you want the sharpest version of it? In this repository, 479 commits name an artificial intelligence. The bug was found by a man who built a fake shop selling a hoodie that does not exist, in the right colors, with the biggest size marked sold out, because he understood that the exploit needed you to want the hoodie. That is not verification. That is not even engineering exactly. That is imagining a person and then imagining what would fool them. Now, is this a permanent limitation? I genuinely do not know, and anyone who tells you confidently either way is selling something. There is nothing in principle stopping you pointing an agent at a code base and saying, assume every input is hostile, go and find me the injections. People are building exactly that. But that instruction is still a human deciding to be suspicious. And on the 15-month record in front of me, at the exact moment it would have mattered, 4 days before a public exploit, the instruction that was actually given was, tidy this up. Chapter 6, 5 Kinds of Security. Now let me show you the document I think explains all of it. Omarchy ships its own manual in the repository, and one chapter is called Security. It was last worked on by Hansen on the 13th and 14th of August, 9 days before the exploit went public. Its first sentence exactly as written. Omarchy takes security extremely seriously. And then, to its considerable credit, it does not just assert that, it lists what it does. 5 numbered items, here they are. 1. Full disk encryption is mandatory. 2. The firewall is on by default. Everything blocked inbound except one port for local file sharing, and secure shell off until you switch it on. 3. Arch is a rolling distribution, so security patches reach you fast. 4. Omarchy maintains its own packages and its own mirror, rather than pulling from anywhere. 5. The whole distribution, the images, the packages, the mirror, sits behind Cloudflare's protection against denial of service. Read that list again and ask yourself what it is a list of. Every item is a perimeter. Encryption protects you from someone holding your laptop. The firewall protects you from someone reaching your machine over a network. Rolling updates protect you from flaws in other people's software. The mirror protects you from a poisoned package. Cloudflare protects the servers. Now walk the hoodie exploit past all 5. Did it need an open port? No. You opened the connection yourself outbound in a browser. Did it need your laptop? No. Did it need a malicious package? No, everything involved shipped with the system. Would being fully patched have saved you? No. And this is the part that stings. Because the defect was not in somebody else's code, it was in Omarchy's own shell script. 5 defenses, 0 engagement. I want to be fair here because this is not hypocrisy and I refuse to pretend it is. Every one of those 5 things is real and they are more than most desktop Linux gives you. That page is not marketing puff. It is an honest description of a genuine posture. It is just that the word security in that document points outward, at the distribution, at the supply chain, at the stolen laptop scenario. It does not point at the code the project writes itself, and I could not find a security policy file in the repository either. No standard document telling a researcher where to send a vulnerability. Mehmet in C published a web page because what else was he going to do? One more thing from that same chapter, and I promise you I am not reaching for it. There is a section on passwordless sudo, on turning off the password prompt for administrator access, and it explains when you would want that. Quoting, most often when an artificial intelligence agent is doing a long stretch of system work for you. The manual is completely straight about the cost, too. While it is on, anything running as your user can do anything as root without being asked. That is the whole point and it is also the whole risk. Their words, not mine. So hold the 2 facts together. A 2-click path to running commands as your user, and a documented, sanctioned window in which your user is root. Opened most often so an agent can work. Nobody chained those, I am not claiming anyone did. But that is the shape of the surface now, isn't it? Chapter 7, the commit with no AI in it. The first fix closed the hole, it did not close the shape of the hole. Think about what it actually did. It stopped a title from forging a record, it made the player treat the path as a path. Good work. But the safety of the whole system still rested on every future contributor, quoting every future string correctly, forever. That is not a fix, that is a promise. So at 5 in the evening on the same day, 2.5 hours after the first patch was merged, Ryan Hughes opened a second one. Remember him, 708 commits, the second most prolific person in this repository. His pull request does not patch the bug, it deletes the category. Instead of building a click action as a string that a shell will later interpret, the action becomes a list of arguments, a program and then its inputs kept separate all the way through, handed to the shell as positional parameters that it is structurally incapable of rereading as code. A hostile file name stays inert data because there is no longer a place for it to stop being data. And there is no string form left to misuse. He removed it, deliberately in its own commit, with a message saying that leaving a freeform option next to the safe one is a standing invitation for the next person to do the wrong thing. 29 files, 561 lines added, 209 removed. Every caller migrated. Screenshots, screen recording, file transfer, the crash reporter, the migration notice. Merged before midnight. Now go and look at the bottom of those commits, and tell me what you expect to see. There is nothing there. No co-authored by line, not on any of the 3 commits that do the work and not on the merge, in a repository where 62% of this month's commits name a model, the change that closed the class, that took the shell out of the path entirely so nobody could reintroduce this, is one of the ones that names nobody at all. Now I want you to hold me to the same standard I have held everyone else to. Absence of a trailer is not proof of absence of a tool. He may have used one and not said so. That is a real limit on this observation, and you should hold it in mind. But I can tell you what the public record says, and the public record says the deepest fix in this sequence has no machine's name on it. And then, 2 days later, one last thing that I think saves this whole story from being a sermon. Mehmet Insay, the researcher, the man with the hoodie shop, came back not to gloat. He filed 2 more security fixes to Omarchy on the 25th of August. One about a credentials file staged at a predictable temporary path during security key setup. One pinning a trusted search path inside a privileged domain name helper. Both of his commits carry a co-authored by line naming Claude. He used the agents too, of course he did. And so should you, they are extremely good. He just knew what to point them at. Chapter 8, the commit I could not find. So let me tell you what would break this argument and how you could check it yourself. I searched 479 A-attributed commits in this repository. I was looking for one specific thing, a commit where an agent went into a file nobody had flagged, for no reason anyone gave it, and came out holding an injection. I did not find ones. That is my whole case, and I want you to see how thin a thread it hangs on. It is one repository. It is one project's conventions for writing trailers. It is 15 months. And a trailer only records that a model was present, never what it contributed. So every number in this video is a floor and a shadow, not a measurement. If you can show me that commit, here or in any repository where the log is public, then the thing I have called suspicion is already automated, and I have simply been looking in too small a place. I would want to know that. It is the more interesting outcome. There is a weaker version of the same test, and it is coming whether we like it or not. Agents are now being run continuously over codebases with instructions to assume every input is hostile. If those start filing real, unprompted vulnerability reports at volume, not restating known classes, but finding live bugs in code nobody suspected, then the distinction I have drawn tonight dissolves inside a year. Watch for that, it is the falsifiable bit. But until it happens, here is the record as it stands. An agent helped build the feature. An agent tidied the file 4 days before the exploit. An agent reviewed the emergency patch and did it better than most people would have. Agents helped write the patch itself, and agents helped write the 2 fixes that came after. They were everywhere. And the thing that actually found it was a person who built a fake hoodie shop in the right colors, with the biggest size marked sold out, because he understood that a security hole is only real if somebody wants to click. Nearly 32,000 people have starred that operating system. Most of them will never read a commit log. You just did.